This video is about the questions from several friends regarding the interpretation of Michael Easter's Scarcity Brain. Below are our responses, for reference only. Question 1. Regarding the scarcity loop, is this issue also prevalent among the elderly in other countries? If so, it indicates the universality of the scarcity loop. If not, does it still apply? Response. One issue for the older generation in China is that many of them experienced widespread poverty in their youth and generally did not receive formal higher education. Although many of them now live better lives, as Morgan Housel discusses in his book, Same as Ever, people's thinking patterns are often shaped by their youth. This is an unavoidable reality. However, we should acknowledge that Chinese elderly people are doing quite well overall. Instances of inconsiderate behavior are isolated cases. Most of them focus on saving money for their children. We should be more understanding. However, there are also elderly Americans with lower standards. They are not necessarily drawn to free things, but they may be addicted to drugs and gambling. You can see many elderly people spending entire days playing slot machines in casinos. These activities are illegal in China. The shrinking number of today's American middle class is a social issue. Question 2. Hello, regarding the dangers of highly concentrated items, I think current social science books need to be more concise. Things that can be explained in 20 pages are stretched to 200 pages. Is it because authors get paid by the word? Response. The income from writing books is determined by sales, not word count. I understand that non-fiction writers may write lengthy books, but it's not because they want to pad the word count. One important reason is that different readers have different needs for detail. Our channel previously discussed Robert M. Sapolsky's Behave, the Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst. We covered it in 4 episodes, and there wasn't enough material for an additional one. I read the ebook version, but when I saw the physical book in a store, I was shocked by its thickness. Such thickness might scare away some readers, so it's definitely not a selling point. But Sapolsky had to make it that thick. This is because he needs to ensure academic rigor. He must explain the nuances of theories and the details of research very clearly and accurately, which requires extensive explanation. He must provide detailed references. To prove a theory's validity, he needs to examine all seemingly correct, but potentially flawed related theories, demonstrating a comprehensive understanding of the field. However, our channel doesn't have that burden. If you ask me for details, I'll refer you to the original book. Another reason is that some authors are not very skilled at writing books. Every non-fiction writer asks themselves, why do people read novels from start to finish but struggle with social science books? The answer is, of course, that novels are stories, and our brains are wired to follow stories. Therefore, the straightforward approach is to include various stories in social science books. And real ones at that. For example, in The Scarcity Brain, the original book contains lengthy stories about the author's personal experiences, such as traveling to Iraq and risking his life for interviews. But when I discuss the book, I don't mention those stories at all. Those stories are unrelated to the book's logical thread. That's the issue. People like hearing stories, but they might not like your particular story. If it were me writing, I would prefer to intersperse a few stories that aren't my personal experiences, but are closely related to the logic. Most social science writers are professional researchers, and their primary job isn't writing books. However, even for those who specialize in writing, I believe social science authors haven't yet found the key to making their books engaging. Question 3. Regarding how to break the loop, is awareness also a way to break the cycle of scarcity or addiction? As you mentioned before, advanced players see the game as deconstructing the designer's thought process, identifying the psychological effects or cognitive biases used. If we can recognize these tricks, are we less likely to fall into them or escape more easily? Response. Yes, I believe that, for psychological addictions, understanding the underlying mechanisms can make it easier to break free. However, we must also recognize that some addictions are physiological. For example, alcohol addiction involves the brain and body's physiological response to alcohol, and for some people, it's related to genetic expression. Simply attending a lecture on what alcohol addiction is might not be very effective. Therefore, cognitive awareness alone is not enough. We need to change behavior patterns. There is an intervention method called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which aims to change both the patient's thinking patterns and behavior patterns, eliminating bad habits and fostering new ones. Specific methods include participating in social activities, learning new skills, mastering techniques like deep breathing and meditation to calm the mind, and gradually adapting to things that initially cause fear through exposure therapy. The principle is that cognition is useful, but we cannot expect to become new people just by reading a book or attending a lecture. Neural networks require reinforced learning with feedback and a lot of repetitive training. Question 4. Regarding abundance loop, the idea of gear, not stuff. Many people naturally disguise their shopping mania as gear enthusiasts. Gear can be upgraded and is not completely homogeneous, so it's a matter of degree. Wouldn't need it, not more of it be more appropriate? Response. Not necessarily. The term gear, in the context of gear enthusiasts, tends to be something they directly pursue, which deviates from Easter's original intention. But need it, not more of it, sounds like minimalism, which also has its issues. Easter's intention is that we should not focus on the item itself, but on what you do with it. Gear is just a tool, a means to an end. If we translate it into Chinese, Xuanzi's saying, "A gentleman uses things, a petty man is used by things," is more fitting. It's about controlling and using items, where humans are the subjects, and items are the objects, focusing on people. We shouldn't be controlled by items, and we shouldn't prioritize items over ourselves. One of our readers shared a story about a young man he knows. The young man, despite not being wealthy, insisted his parents buy him a luxury car worth over 700,000 yuan, just for the sake of appearances. As a result, he couldn't even afford the fuel, and the car mostly sits unused. This is being used by things. He sacrifices his family's happiness to own this car, making himself very passive. Conversely, if someone firmly treats a car as a tool, then it's fine even if he loves cars. Such a person can buy a nice car, if he has the money, study cars if he doesn't, rent cars, or discuss various car features, but he doesn't need to own a specific car to prove himself. He uses cars to nourish his cultural sensitivity. It all depends on whether you are active or passive. A gourmet believes people are above food, while a glutton silently places themselves subordinate to food. The best standard to evaluate your relationship with an object is whether it makes you freer or less free.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.